there's a question nobody wants to ask out loud. A question that feels almost forbidden in our couple-obsessed culture. Here it is. What if you're actually better off alone? Not temporarily. Not while you're working on yourself until the right person comes along, but genuinely, profoundly better off. Your nervous system calmer. Your mind clearer. Your life more yours. I've watched thousands of people discover this truth. And the transformation is remarkable. Not because they gave up on love, but because they stopped betraying themselves in the name of it. Today, I want to share what they learned, what changed for them, and why the path you've been told to avoid might be the one that saves you. You need to understand something first. This isn't about being damaged. It isn't about fear of intimacy. It isn't about any of the labels society quickly assigns to people who choose solitude. This is about recognizing a fundamental truth that most people spend their entire lives avoiding. Some of you are wired differently. Your peace doesn't come from partnership. Your growth doesn't happen through compromise. Your fulfillment doesn't require another person's validation. And pretending otherwise is slowly killing something essential in you. Let me show you what I mean. You wake up on a Saturday morning. No one's mood to manage. No one's expectations hovering over your breakfast. No negotiations about how to spend the day. You lie there, and you feel something you haven't felt in years. Peace. Pure, uncomplicated peace. But then the guilt arrives. That voice that says you should want someone next to you. You should feel lonely. You should be seeking partnership. That voice? Not wisdom. It's programming. You've been taught that wanting solitude means something is wrong with you, that healthy people crave connection, that fulfillment requires romantic partnership. But here's what they don't tell you. Connection and peace aren't the same thing. And for some of you, peace is more valuable than connection. Your nervous system knows this even when your mind resists it. Think about your last relationship, or your current one if you're being honest with yourself right now. How much of your energy goes into managing it? How many hours do you spend processing feelings, navigating conflicts, explaining yourself, adjusting your natural rhythms to accommodate someone else? How often do you feel relief when they leave the house? How frequently do you crave silence after conversations? How many times have you caught yourself longing for the simplicity of your own company? These aren't signs of a bad relationship. They're signs that you might not be built for a relationship at all. At least not in the way society defines it. And this realization terrifies people because it contradicts everything you've been taught about human nature. You're told that humans need connection to thrive, and that's true. But connection doesn't only come from romantic partnership. You can have friends. You can have meaningful conversations. You can have community. What you don't need is someone in your daily space, in your emotional field, requiring your energy and attention constantly. For some of you, that constant requirement feels like suffocation dressed up as love. Watch what happens in your body when you imagine living alone. Truly alone. Not temporarily between relationships, not sadly alone because nobody wants you, but powerfully, intentionally alone because that's what serves your highest self. Does your chest tighten with fear, or does it expand with relief? Your body's response tells you everything you need to know. If you feel relief, trust it. That's not dysfunction. That's clarity. But you've learned to mistrust that clarity. You've learned to call it fear of intimacy, commitment issues, emotional unavailability. You've pathologized your own truth. You've turned your need for solitude into a problem to fix. And in doing so, you've abandoned the most important relationship you'll ever have, the one with yourself. Here's what nobody tells you about relationships. They require you to negotiate everything: where you live, how you spend money, how you organize your space, what temperature the room should be, when to talk and when to be quiet, what to eat for dinner, how to spend weekends. Every single aspect of your life becomes a compromise. And compromise isn't a bad thing if you genuinely want partnership. But if you don't, if your soul craves autonomy, then compromise feels like self-betrayal. You give up the morning routine that grounds you. You adjust your sleep schedule. You watch television you don't care about. You attend social events you'd rather skip. You explain yourself constantly, justify your choices, defend your preferences, and slowly, incrementally, you become someone you don't recognize. Someone dimmer, someone smaller, someone who traded authenticity for the appearance of normalcy. And the worst part? Everyone congratulates you for it. They say you're finally growing up, finally learning to compromise, finally becoming a team player, but you feel like you're dying inside. And you tell yourself that's just what love requires. That's just what mature relationships look like. That's just you being selfish and needing to evolve. But what if it's not? What if you're simply trying to force yourself into a shape you were never meant to take? I want you to consider something radical. What if your reluctance to settle down isn't a flaw? What if your need for space isn't a wound to heal? What if your preference for solitude isn't something to overcome? What if these things are actually your wisdom speaking? Your authentic self trying to protect you from a life that will never feel right? You see this in nature all the time. Some animals are pack animals. Some are solitary. Neither is better, neither is wrong. They're just different survival strategies, different ways of being. But humans, we only validate one way, the partnered way, the coupled way, the we, not I way. And anyone who doesn't fit that mold gets labeled as broken. So you spend years trying to fix yourself. You read books about attachment theory. You go to therapy to understand why you can't seem to maintain relationships. You force yourself into partnerships that feel wrong from the beginning. You ignore every signal your body sends. You override your own knowing. And you wonder why you feel increasingly anxious, increasingly exhausted, increasingly lost. Let me tell you what's actually happening. You're not broken. You're being broken by trying to live a life that doesn't fit you. Your anxiety isn't random. It's your system's response to constant self-betrayal. Your exhaustion isn't laziness. It's the cost of pretending to be someone you're not. Your feeling lost isn't confusion. It's the natural result of abandoning your own compass. And here's the dangerous part. The longer you stay in relationships that don't serve you, the more you normalize the discomfort. You start to think anxiety is just part of adult life. You believe exhaustion is just how relationships feel. You accept that losing yourself is the price of partnership. And slowly, you forget what peace feels like. You forget what it's like to move through your days without constant negotiation. You forget who you are when you're not performing for someone else. I've seen this pattern destroy people. Not quickly, not dramatically, but slowly, quietly, like water, wearing down stone. They wake up 10 years into a marriage and realize they can't remember the last time they felt truly themselves. They've become so skilled at accommodating, at adjusting, at compromising, that they don't know what they actually want anymore. Their preferences have disappeared. Their opinions have softened into whatever keeps the peace. Their spark has dimmed into something manageable, something safe, something that doesn't disrupt the relationship. And everyone around them says how stable they are, how mature, how they've really figured out this relationship thing. But inside, they're screaming. Or worse, they've stopped screaming because they don't even hear their own voice anymore. They've successfully silenced the part of themselves that knew the truth all along, the part that wanted solitude, that craved autonomy, that needed space to simply be. You know what's interesting? The people who judge you most harshly for living alone are often the ones most miserable in their relationships. They've made the sacrifice. They've given up their autonomy. And they need you to make that same sacrifice to validate their choice. Your freedom threatens their compromise. Your peace exposes their suffering. Your authenticity reveals their pretending. So they tell you, you're afraid, you're selfish, you're running from intimacy. You're going to end up sad and alone. But here's what they don't understand. You might end up alone, but you won't be sad. Because sadness comes from abandoning yourself, from living a life that contradicts your nature, from saying yes when everything in you screams no. You know what's truly sad? Spending your one precious life pretending, performing partnership while dying inside, smiling through decades of wrong. Let me be clear about something. This isn't about demonizing relationships. Partnership is beautiful for people who genuinely want it, who thrive in shared space, who find their expansion through connection. But you might not be one of those people. And that's not just okay, it's actually perfect. Because the world needs people who are fully themselves, living authentically, even when that looks different from the norm. Think about the energy you have when you're alone. Really alone. Not lonely, but genuinely at peace in your own company. You're creative. You're clear. You're connected to something deeper than daily drama. You have space to think, to feel, to grow in directions only you can determine. That's not isolation. That's integration. That's you becoming whole. Now think about the energy drain of relationship. The constant emotional processing. The navigating of moods not your own. The explaining of yourself over and over. The adjusting of your natural rhythm to accommodate another's. The ways you make yourself smaller so someone else can feel bigger. The ways you dim your light so someone else doesn't feel threatened. The ways you abandon your knowing so someone else can be right. Is that love? Or is that slow suicide dressed up as partnership? Because real love, authentic love, doesn't require you to betray yourself. It doesn't demand you override your truth. It doesn't ask you to live in a way that feels fundamentally wrong to your nature. But so often, what we call love is actually just mutual accommodation of wounds. Two people agreeing to manage each other's emptiness. Two people trying to fill from each other what they refuse to find within themselves. And you're tired of it. You're tired of the performance. You're tired of the pretending. You're tired of explaining why you need time alone, why you want separate spaces, why you can't be emotionally available every moment. You're tired of being made to feel defective for having needs that don't fit the relationship script. Here's what changes when you finally give yourself permission to live alone, to truly choose it, not as a temporary state, but as a valid life path. You stop apologizing. You stop explaining. You stop defending your choices to people who will never understand them. You stop trying to make yourself fit into a box designed for someone else. And you start building a life that actually works for you. Your mornings become sacred. You wake when your body wants to wake. You move through your routines without negotiation. You eat what you want. You work when you're inspired. You rest when you need to. You don't explain yourself to anyone. You don't manage anyone's reactions to your choices. You simply live according to your own rhythm, and that rhythm, it's yours. Completely, undeniably yours. Your space becomes a reflection of your actual self, not a compromise between two sets of preferences, not a negotiation of styles, but yours. The colors you love, the level of order or creative chaos that works for you, the temperature you prefer, the sounds you want or don't want, the lighting that soothes you. Everything arranged exactly as it needs to be for you to feel at home. Because it is your home, not shared space where you're a guest in your own life, but truly, fully home. Your emotional energy becomes your own again. You're not processing someone else's bad day. You're not managing someone else's insecurities. You're not navigating someone else's family drama. You're not explaining your feelings over and over to someone who doesn't quite get you. You're not defending your reality. You're not justifying your experience. You're simply living it, feeling what you feel, thinking what you think, being who you are, without translation. And something remarkable happens. You start to remember yourself, the you from before all the relationships, before all the compromising, before all the adjusting and accommodating. You remember what you actually enjoy, what actually interests you, what actually matters to you when nobody else's opinion is weighing on you. You rediscover preferences you'd forgotten you had. You reconnect with dreams you'd set aside. You find parts of yourself that had gone dormant under the weight of partnership. This isn't selfishness. This is self-reclamation. And there's a profound difference. Selfishness is taking from others. Self-reclamation is stopping the theft of yourself. Selfishness is demanding others serve you. Self-reclamation is refusing to abandon yourself to serve others. Selfishness leaves debris. Self-reclamation clears space for authentic living. But you're going to face resistance from family who wants grandchildren, from friends who don't understand, from a culture that still treats single people like they're incomplete. You're going to face questions at holidays, concern from well-meaning relatives, judgment from people who think they know better. You're going to be told you're being too picky, too demanding, too afraid, too broken, too something. And here's what you need to understand. Their discomfort is not your problem. Their inability to imagine a fulfilling life outside partnership is not evidence that such a life doesn't exist. Their fear of being alone is not proof that you should fear it too. Their choices don't have to be your choices. Their path doesn't have to be your path. Their idea of happiness doesn't have to match yours. You get to define fulfillment for yourself. You get to decide what a good life looks like. You get to choose peace over performance. You get to prioritize authenticity over approval. And you get to do all of this without apology, without explanation, without defending your right to live in alignment with your actual nature. Watch what happens to your nervous system when you truly give yourself this permission. When you stop fighting your need for solitude. When you stop pathologizing your preference for autonomy. When you stop trying to force yourself into relationship structures that feel like cages, your anxiety decreases, your energy returns, your creativity expands, your joy becomes accessible again. Because you're no longer at war with yourself. You're no longer trying to be someone you're not. You're finally home in your own life. This is the transformation I've watched unfold thousands of times. People who've spent decades thinking something was wrong with them suddenly realizing they were simply trying to live the wrong life. People who've been told they're too independent, too self-sufficient, too comfortable alone, finally understanding that these aren't flaws. These are features. These are their strengths. These are the very things that make them who they are. And yes, you'll still have moments of doubt. Moments when you wonder if you're making a mistake. Moments when everyone else's life looks shinier than yours. Moments when you question whether you're missing out. That's normal. That's the programming reasserting itself. That's every message you've ever absorbed about needing partnership to be complete. But those moments pass. And underneath them, there's a deeper knowing, a quiet certainty, a bone-deep recognition that this path, this solitary path, is yours. You might meet someone someday who changes the equation. Someone who expands rather than constrains. Someone who adds to your peace rather than disrupts it. Someone whose presence feels like coming home rather than leaving it. And if that happens, beautiful. But it can only happen when you're no longer betraying yourself. When you're no longer compromising your nature. When you're no longer trying to force yourself into a life that doesn't fit. It can only happen when you're already whole, already home, already complete in yourself. Because that's the secret nobody tells you. You can't find the right relationship until you stop needing relationship. You can't attract authentic partnership until you're genuinely fine without it. You can't build something real with another person until you've built something real with yourself. And building something real with yourself, that requires time alone, space alone, life alone. It requires you to stop running from solitude and start embracing it as the gift it actually is. So maybe you don't need to fix yourself. Maybe you don't need more therapy to figure out why you can't commit. Maybe you don't need to push through your resistance to partnership. Maybe you just need to listen to what your system has been trying to tell you all along, that you're different, that your path is different, that your fulfillment comes from a different source than most people's. And that's not a problem. That's your truth. Your life can be rich without romance, full without partnership, meaningful without marriage. You can have deep friendships, purposeful work, creative expression, community, connection, spiritual growth, personal evolution, all of it. All of the depth and meaning and fulfillment that makes life worth living. You just might experience it differently than people who need romantic partnership to feel complete. And that difference? Stop treating it like a deficit. Stop apologizing for it. Stop trying to overcome it. Start honoring it. Start building around it. Start living from it. Because when you do, everything shifts. You stop feeling broken. You start feeling free. You stop performing for others. You start showing up for yourself. You stop living someone else's life. You start claiming your own. This is not about giving up. This is about waking up. Waking up to who you actually are beneath all the conditioning. Waking up to what you actually need beneath all the shoulds. Waking up to how you actually want to live beneath all the expectations. And that waking up, it's the most important thing you'll ever do. Because you get one life. One precious, finite, irreplaceable life. And you can spend it trying to be normal. Trying to fit in. Trying to want what everyone says you should want. Or you can spend it being authentically, unapologetically yourself. Even if that self prefers solitude. Even if that self thrives alone. Even if that self's greatest love story is the one they write with their own soul. Listen to what I'm about to tell you. Because this is where most people get stuck. They understand intellectually that living alone might be right for them. They feel the relief when they imagine it. They recognize the exhaustion that comes from partnership, but they still can't give themselves permission. They still wait for someone else to validate their choice. They still need society to approve. And that's where they stay, stuck between knowing and doing, between truth and action, between who they are and who they pretend to be. You don't need permission. You never did. The only person who can authorize your life is you. The only person who can say this is right, this is true, this is mine, is you. And until you claim that authority, you'll remain a visitor in your own existence. Always checking with others. Always second-guessing yourself. Always wondering if you're making the right choice. Here's what happens when you finally claim your authority. When you finally say yes to yourself, without qualification, without apology, without waiting for external validation. You step into a different kind of power. Not the power that comes from achievement or accomplishment. Not the power that requires approval or recognition. But the power that comes from alignment. The power of living in complete integrity with who you actually are. And this power, it changes everything about how you move through the world. You stop seeking validation because you're validating yourself. You stop explaining yourself because you're not asking for permission. You stop defending your choices because you know they're right for you. And this shift, this internal shift from seeking to knowing, transforms your entire experience of being alive. You start making decisions from a different place. Not from fear of being alone, not from pressure to conform, not from desperation to be normal, but from clarity, from self-knowledge, from deep recognition of what serves your highest good. And decisions made from this place, they never lead you astray. They might lead you to unconventional places. They might take you off the beaten path, but they never betray you because they come from you, the real you, not the conditioned you, not the people-pleasing you, not the afraid to be different you, but the essential you that knows what it needs to thrive. I want you to understand something about thriving, real thriving, not surviving while pretending everything is fine, not getting through days while slowly losing yourself, but actually thriving, expanding, growing, becoming more of who you are. That kind of thriving requires conditions, specific conditions. And for some of you, those conditions include solitude. They include autonomy. They include space that belongs entirely to you. Remove those conditions, and you don't thrive. You wilt, slowly, invisibly, but certainly. You've probably been wilting for a while now, telling yourself it's normal, that this is just adult life, that everyone feels this way. But not everyone does. The people who are living in alignment with their nature, they're not wilting. They're not slowly dying inside. They're expanding, growing, becoming more themselves over time. And you can have that too. But first, you have to stop forcing yourself into conditions that make thriving impossible. Think about a plant. If you put it in the wrong soil, with the wrong amount of light, it doesn't matter how much you water it, it won't thrive. It might survive for a while, but it won't flourish. You're the same. You can't flourish in the wrong conditions. No amount of trying harder, being more grateful, adjusting your attitude, will make you thrive in an environment that fundamentally contradicts your nature. You need the right conditions. And if those conditions include living alone, then that's what you need. Not what you should want, not what would be nice to have, but what you actually need to become who you're meant to be. And here's what most people miss. Choosing to live alone isn't the end of your growth. It's the beginning. Because when you finally stop fighting yourself, when you finally create the conditions you need, that's when the real transformation begins. That's when you have the space and energy to do the deep work, to face the parts of yourself you've been avoiding, to develop the gifts you've been neglecting, to pursue the calling you've been too distracted to hear. Partnership often delays this work. It gives you something external to focus on, someone else's needs to meet, someone else's problems to solve, someone else's growth to support. And while you're busy being a good partner, being supportive, being there for someone else, your own development gets postponed, put on hold, saved for later. Except later never comes, because there's always someone else's needs, always someone else's crisis, always someone else's growth taking priority over yours. Living alone removes that delay. It removes that excuse. It removes that distraction. And suddenly, you have to face yourself, your unlived life, your unexplored potential, your undeveloped gifts. And yes, that can be uncomfortable. It can be challenging. It can bring up all the things you've been avoiding. But it's also the only way forward. The only way to become who you're actually capable of being. The only way to live the life that's uniquely yours. This is what people don't tell you about choosing solitude. They focus on what you're giving up, the companionship, the shared experiences, the comfort of partnership, but they ignore what you're gaining, the self-knowledge, the authenticity, the freedom to explore every dimension of yourself without compromise, the opportunity to build a life so aligned with your truth that every day feels right. That's not a consolation prize. That's the grand prize. You've spent enough time trying to want what others want, enough time trying to fit yourself into their vision of a good life, enough time betraying your own knowing to satisfy someone else's expectations. And where has it gotten you? Here, reading these words, looking for permission to choose differently, searching for validation that it's okay to be who you are. Well, here it is. It's more than okay. It's essential. It's your path. It's your truth. It's your one chance to live authentically. So here's what I want you to sit with tonight. Not what your family expects, not what society programmed into you, but this. What does your nervous system feel when you imagine a life completely your own? No compromising on weekend plans, no navigating someone else's moods, no explaining your choices. Just you, your space, your rhythm, your peace. If that image brings relief, trust it, because your body knows what your mind has been taught to deny. Some people are meant to share their lives, and some people are meant to live them fully, deeply, powerfully alone. Neither path is superior, but one might be yours. And the moment you stop apologizing for that, everything changes. Your life becomes yours again. And that, my friend, is a freedom worth claiming. Listen to me very carefully now, because what I'm about to say might be the most important thing you hear today. You're standing at a crossroads, and you've been standing here longer than you realize. On one side is the life everyone told you to want, the partnership, the compromise, the shared everything, the we instead of I. On the other side is the life your soul keeps whispering about, the solitude, the autonomy, the space that's entirely yours, the freedom to be completely yourself without translation. You already know which path is yours. Your body has been telling you for years. Every time you felt relief instead of loneliness when someone left. Every time you craved silence more than conversation. Every time you chose your own company over anyone else's. Those weren't signs of dysfunction. They were your truth speaking. And you've been ignoring it because it doesn't match what you were taught to want. But here's what happens if you keep ignoring it. 5 years from now, you'll still be trying to convince yourself that partnership is what you need. 10 years from now, you'll have perfected the performance so well that you won't even recognize yourself anymore. 20 years from now, you'll look back and realize you spent your entire life living for an audience that never mattered, being someone you never were, wanting things you never wanted. Or you can choose differently. Right now, today, this moment, you can stop waiting for permission that's never coming. Stop hoping someone will validate your choice. Stop needing the world to understand before you honor what you know is true. You can simply decide, I am choosing myself. I am choosing peace. I am choosing the life that actually fits me instead of the one that fits everyone else's expectations of me. And yes, people will have opinions. They always do. But their opinions aren't your reality. Their fears aren't your truth. Their inability to imagine your joy doesn't make it less real. You don't need them to understand. You just need to stop letting their misunderstanding stop you. The life you're afraid to claim isn't lonely. It's not empty. It's not sad. Those are projections from people who've never experienced the profound peace of genuine solitude, who've never known what it feels like to wake up every single day in complete alignment with themselves, who've never experienced the freedom of building a life without compromise. They can't imagine it, so they fear it, and they want you to fear it too. But you don't have to, because you're different. You've always been different. And that difference isn't a flaw to fix. It's a design to honor. It's your unique way of being in the world. It's your path. And the moment you fully claim it, the moment you stop apologizing for it, everything you've been searching for becomes available to you. Not through another person, but through yourself. So stop waiting. Stop preparing. Stop convincing yourself you need one more sign, one more piece of evidence, one more person to tell you it's okay. You're the only permission you need, and you already know what's true. You've always known. Now you just have to be brave enough to live it. Your life is waiting for you. Not the life you were supposed to want, but the life you actually want. The one where you're home, where you're whole, where you're finally, completely, unapologetically yourself. That life exists, and it's yours the moment you choose it. So choose it. Choose yourself. Choose peace. Choose truth. Choose the solitary path that's been calling you all along, because that's not giving up on life. That's finally showing up for it.